And we're live.
Are we live?
Jess,
Yay!
yes,
Yeah.
we're live. Jess, it's really good to see you. Think
Good
we're
to see you
so
too.
overdue on doing this.
I know. I think we probably could do this once a week based on everything that we're chatting
I know,
about just on text, you know?
I know. Well, I reached out to you because I read your story about your son and the accident, and I know exactly what that feels like. I'm the mum of two 22-year-old twins. And when I read, I remember one of them is an epileptic, and he had a grand mal seizure um, this summer. And, fortunately, but by now, I mean, it's not the first one I've seen. They're pretty scary. Unfortunately, when we got to the hospital, they measured the meds in his bloods, and the blood and the med level was too low. So at least, there's it's better to have a rationale behind what happened because you can fix
Mm.
it. But I read what happened to your son, and I just thought, it's funny because we race around at breakneck speed. You do particularly, and then life happens, and it's a sort of reminder um, of the fragility of things. I think.
I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I think you get it. You've always gotten it because you are a working mother. And I think it's something that people tend to forget in this line of work is like every time you leave, you know, routine is interrupted and you have to make sure that everybody's situated and good and they have rides to school and everything, but then when you're away you always have that fear that you're going to get this call that someone's been injured or something terrible has happened. I think we all live with that. um and with four boys it's happened many times. And you know what's funny, well, not funny, it's actually terrible, but I think you knew about Leon. My other son was injured. He got I was in New York, and he had a dirt bike accident in a remote field, and so there was no Wi-Fi, but he had to be airlifted, and so the other text didn't come through. All I got was this video of my son being airlifted into that little basket that, they pull them up.
Yeah.
And anyway, it turned into a whole nightmare because that turned into a terrible bone injury and 5 months of, stress and him in bed. But I had hives for like 9 months after that, and I didn't know what it was. I read about it, and apparently it's, like, pretty common to go through trauma and then your body have these hives, but right now, they're back just from this incident. It's like I've never had hives in my life before, but when one of my kids get injured, that seems to be my body's reaction. So I am miserable right now. I'm so itchy, and if anyone has any tips, please send them my way. But yeah, it's a stress.
I can totally relate. I have got a pinched nerve in my neck, which is excruciatingly painful. And I had one injection, and it happened last exactly this time a year ago when I was finishing the Idaho 4. It's the stress. And,
Stress, yeah.
it is the stress. And, I have a very nice, well, there seems to be an army of doctors now I've got to go and have another injection. But one of them, a man, said to me, you really need to slow down. And I did wonder, would he say that to a man? Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like women in particular are capable of just taking so much on and really juggling all of it. I remember even as a stay-at-home mom, when I had the four of them, I made it to every school meet. It was just a constant, just juggle of all these schedules, but I made it to all the things that I needed to be at. And I remember writing, I have a diary, and I wrote, like, because you always, looking back in hindsight, you're always very nostalgic and you miss them being little. But I wrote to remind myself, like, this is the hardest year of your life. Don't forget how hard it was. There was two babies. I had to carry two babies because one was delayed in walking. And every small feat was was difficult. Going to get like
Mm.
milk, like it was before DoorDash, we didn't have that. So like if you ran out of milk, you had to go take 3 kids into the grocery store, to get one thing. Um, but I mean, so your son, well, do you want to talk about your sons? They're twins,
Yeah,
right?
I do think, it was, you have 4 of them, I have 2 of them. I came from a family of all girls. I have twin sisters. So when I heard that I was having twin boys, I have to tell you, my heart sank because I thought, what am I going to do with,
Only
2,
new girls.
I only knew girls. And I will say, and obviously, my children are given, what happened with their birth and Jeffrey Epstein is now very much out there, and
Absolutely.
they now, um, they talk about it, and they've told me that one of them's still in college, the other one just graduated. That sometimes their classmates call them, you're the Epstein baby, or
The Epstein
whatever, and they
twins.
were very,
God.
yeah, and they were really, they came onto my the podcast series I made, called Chasing Ghislaine, sort of
Hey,
teasing each other.
I
They
with
think
Vicky, I
they
didn't know that. They're on
yeah,
that.
no, they were they took part in that. And I think, um now, because they are 22 and and launched, mum, I think, boys love their mums, and I think that they are really proud of, what I accomplished, and the fact that I work, and the fact that I have an identity that isn't just being their mum. But along the way, there are so many times where I think I've probably thought that I was failing them, because I was on deadline, or I had, this is the problem with news, is that something happens that's beyond your control, and you have to go. And that, I remember just feeling for many, many years that sort of every day they're brought a signpost, you know, do you follow the story, or do you play mum? And obviously, and it's almost about, you know, when there's a crisis, when there's an accident, when something happens, like what happened this weekend to you, obviously that's when you choose mum. But there are lots of other situations where it's not as clear cut, and it's really hard, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I haven't heard a lot of women talk about, because you're right. Every single thing, even right now, I'm trying to plan out my October calendar, and there's all these fabulous, invites and opportunities sort of around Halloween. But, my youngest is still 11, and I'm like, is it, it's just constantly weighing like what is worth, you know, chasing and the travel. And I think that's why that year on the campaign trail was so hard on me. I think I was really fragile just because, exhaustion, but also the guilt. Sorry, so loud here. I'm right on PCH. Um, we always have this sense of guilt of like, what are we going to miss? And, I missed a couple like school awards, and I think the boys are fine. And I think that we're lucky that we have kids who really do appreciate what we do. I think what you're saying, I feel that too, especially my oldest. Like Arlo's 19, and he calls me almost every day, and he wants to know what's going on with, work stuff. They like to gossip. And I mean, they're all so proud. But I mean, and for us too, Mike, we had a major switch with Mike quitting his job to stay home with the boys, because otherwise it would be impossible to get them anywhere. Um,
And
it's
that's
just
really worked, hasn't it? It's really
I mean, it's
worked.
it's still hard. Those dynamics are not easy. For
Mm.
him or me. Like he's, we're both home. Um, but it is the only way that I'm able to pick up and leave, you know. I it's the only way with the 4 of them, but these stupid electric bikes and this moped my son was riding, I'm like, "These are done." I made everyone just sit at home over the weekend because I was I was just like, I was done. I'm like, "Nobody can go anywhere. Everyone's just I need to just see you."
And how long will that last?
No, he's already complaining. You know, I was like, "You have
Yeah,
to rest
yeah,
your
no,
brain."
I know. I think that's actually one of the plus sides of having been a working mum right from the get go. Is that I definitely have never. I don't think my children would ever accuse me of being a helicopter parent.
No.
And now obviously they're 22, and I think if they're very different kids, my two. One of them loves my advice. The other one, it's hard to get hold of him on the phone. and
I was
but
gonna
but
ask their signs, but I'm like, wait, they're twins.
yeah, I know. But but I feel that, particularly with boys, they're going to push when it comes to physical stuff, they push the limits. That's what they do. To a certain extent, you have to let them. I mean, that's what
Well, I
growing
think
up is about.
so that was kind of what I was trying to convey is like, I do love that they have this sense of freedom and California has a unique setting, right? Where you can these kids are just spilling out into the streets. They're all over on skateboards and surfing, which I think that's why we moved here. I love that for them. And I knew with 4 boys, we needed something like that to keep them, busy. But I mean, the injuries, there's always a broken bone with the skating. I don't even know how many casts we've had. And even the surfing. I'm like, how are you guys getting injured in water? Like, why are you emerging with blood dripping down your face? How are you finding injuries in water? Um, and then that's kind of why I would take Hayes with me, the youngest one, on some of these political things because I just couldn't stand the thought of like him being young and kind of running too wild. Um,
And you
but
never do that because you got a lot of kind of crap thrown at you, right, for doing that.
yeah. Um, And I don't really care because I feel like to each of all of us are doing what we think is right for our kids and our household. And to me, I ended up having to put Hayes on what is it called? Independent study? So loud. It's motorcycles. Um, yeah, because I mean, Hayes is like a top student. It didn't affect his work at all. And so I finally set him up so he could just take off and leave with me. And that way, that was a little less stress when I had at least the youngest with me. And then he would come back and relay all these, like he's been to the White House a couple times and he's been to Mar-a-Lago. Um, so I always tell him you're gonna have a good book to write, but they it's hard when they get to that age and they want the freedom to know what is too much, you know? Like what were your boys like? Did you give them curfews and stuff? Were you as strict as teenagers?
I think I tried to be strict and probably failed. Um, but I think I set pretty high expectations. Um, I set pretty high expectations, and it was always. I mean, I wish I could say, it all, it was really simple and clear cut. I mean, I think that we kind of it muddled through. But I feel really great about where we are now. One of my sons last night, we have a family group chat with my ex-husband, and I think they love the fact that he and
Oh,
we're
yeah.
best friends,
So
and
good.
they love that. And so one of them texted, "Good night, lovely family." And the other one texting. And I was like, okay, something, for all the things that went wrong and all the crosswords that got spoken over the years, and the fact that I can't cook, and all the failures
Wait, you
and
can't?
the fact that, I probably was off chasing a story and I did miss something that would be better. here we all are. And it was a really good feeling. But I wanted to talk to you when, you wrote your story, because I know how hard you work. When the New Yorker piece about you came out, and we chatted about it, I thought Claire Malone, the writer, did a really good job, actually. But
Yeah,
but I had talked to her for a very, very long time. She had one small quote for me, which is totally fine. But the thing that I wanted to stress to her about you was, how hard you work, and it takes a toll. And then when something, and you're flying around, you're trying to make sense of things. And I remember when something happened with Ghislaine Maxwell, you were on a plane to London, and I mean, it's draining. And then something like this happens, and it sort of makes you, sometimes it makes you reevaluate, I think.
yeah, I think that's what I'm going through right now. I think it's almost like I sensed this was coming, and I don't know if that's just a mother's, sort of paranoia, but I just I just sensed that there was going to be some sort of an accident. And so when we got that call, we were right across the street at lunch with David Harris. Um, and we were talking about, very deep things. And so the timing of it is really interesting. He was like, don't you think, like, are you looking for signs? Are you looking for signs?
Right.
This was very, and right when he said that, I think was when my son was hit by the car. And then when the call came through, you can always tell. I didn't get the call, but I could tell when Mike answered, he was trying to shield the voice on the other end, and I could barely make it out, but I knew it was Hayes, and he was hysterical. Because it's horrible seeing somebody hit, right? You don't forget that. And then, like you said, the seizure, when before anyone got there, Hayes ran up because Hayes was on a bicycle behind him, so on someone else's bicycle. And so he saw it happen, and he thought Rex was dying
Oh,
in front of him. And
yeah.
so just him too. I mean, he's really shaken up because, that's a really scary thing to see. But you know what? It's one of those things too that the community is so incredible in a time of emergency. All sorts of people showed up to help. And this woman got on the phone. She recognized Hayes. I guess she follows me. She said, she got on the phone and she said, I recognized your son from Instagram. She pulled over and helped him, put him in the ambulance, and then she was letting me know that Rex was conscious. So I did have a little bit of,
Isn't that amazing?
but isn't that, yes. And I'm really grateful for people being in the, doing the right thing in the right moment and helping, because it was so terrifying. But I've been reevaluating. I'm like, you know what? I do need to slow down. I don't need to be at everything. And I need to actually focus on the things that matter the most to me, even in my work. Like, we are stretched so thin with family and, these stories. And there's always, the news cycle is so insane. There's something breaking every day.
Yeah.
I needed to, even after the, Charlie Kirk's, on September 10th, it was too much for me to be online those next few days. And when I disconnected, it changed everything. Like, I needed to disconnect from the noise to, I guess, you know, evaluate what I was feeling on my own,
Right.
without all of that. And so right now, I think the same thing. I'm like, I have these stories and these people and these things that I want to write about, and now I feel like I've been sort of recentered in it. And so,
Do you
um,
so do you ever, like, put the phone away? I mean, are you ever not looking? I mean, do you give yourself like a window every day or not?
no, but those are the things that I'm learning to do. I did it over the weekend. No, because I start getting calls. 4 a.m. I wake up really early and I'm getting constant intel. And I just think too, it's a lot to take in. All these people, all of this stuff it's a lot to take in just on a regular daily basis. So I think I think things happen for a reason. I do believe that. And I think I'm learning right now what is most important. And I mean, you know what? It goes by so fast. Like I was really at home with the boys when they were little, and I knew that that's where I wanted to be. I didn't have any career ambitions, honestly. Um, and so it was very exciting after they got older to have this like surprise career, right? It's a dream
Yeah.
career. Um, but I just now, I'm learning to figure out boundaries and that I don't always need to be available for everyone else.
Right.
Like simple things. Like I told well, actually, right before this happened, I'm like, we need to be eating dinner together more. They have two parents home, and right away he's like, you're right. And so now the last 3 nights we've all sat down for dinner, and just something as simple as that. When I'm home, I'll be gone next week, which I hope I'll see you. I'll be in New York, so maybe we can meet up.
Awesome.
But yeah, so I also feel like it's good. Like I don't have to go into a job every day. I have a very flexible schedule, and then if you were to add up all the hours, like I'll be gone all next week, but it's just a different type of, you know, um, I guess schedule. Like,
Yeah.
but it never
Well,
stops.
yeah, and so yeah, there are great pluses to being in charge of your own time. I mean,
Right.
I can imagine not being in charge of my own time, but there are also real minuses because it means that you feel constantly
Yeah.
under pressure. Um,
Exactly. I think it's so hard when you do what we do because we love it, right? And
yeah.
there's always something going on. And so it's really hard to create your own boundaries. You don't clock out or someone doesn't say, okay, you can go home now. So I think that's probably what I'm learning right now.
I think that maybe that you are in a tougher spot right now than me. It only because I love doing this Substack and I love the variety. And so I am, and, news is in my DNA. So, and I'm interested in so many different things. Um, but I do have, this one deep dive book project that really, I mean, it was the Idaho 4. Now it is the murder of Brian Thompson, and Luigi Mangione. And so that is and particularly this story is a New York based story. So in a way, I'm less, I like going deep into one thing. There's something almost calming about it. So I don't have that awful feeling of, well, should I do more on Charlie Kirk? Should I do more on Robert Kennedy? All the things, because you could do 20 stories a day.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think it is calming when you have one point of focus. Like that's what I really liked about the trial coverage. You have one trial to focus on, and it's
Yeah.
still very consuming. You know that. Like if
Yeah.
you're going to follow this
Look,
trial, it's still going
exhausting.
to be long days, and it drains you in a way that is different from anything else. But I liked that the focus, and you know the characters, and you can go deep into this one area of content. So for me, I think it's hard because I have such incredible access and opportunities and I love all of it, but I don't have the time. And, like when I push publish on a lot of these things, it is not the article I wanted to write or that I think it deserves. It's just the timing. I have to keep moving. So
And
that's,
what do you do for Jess? What do you do for you? What do you do? Like you've got the high, what do you do? I mean, do you do anything for you?
um, do I do anything for me? My assistant's here. Alicia's here.
Hi, Alicia.
What do you do?
What do I do?
Not unless I force her to go to a chiropractor appointment or
At least I'll go right in, like, go for a walk. I mean, like, look at this. It's right. The beach is right there.
Right. So that's very restorative.
It's Vicky, it's hard because I love so much what I do. Like, if I could stop sleeping, I would, just so I could, I want to read about these things. I want to write about them. I want to photograph them. I want to go to all the things I'm invited to. But no, I'm trying to start working on exercise, right?
Yeah.
I think you need some, I read a lot of actually fiction.
You do?
I do, because it takes me out of the world that you and I live in. It takes me out of reality and chasing all these, nonfiction stories. So, for me, if I, my idea of heaven is to sit on the couch on a weekend and read and read a really good book. And then I love, when I haven't got a pinched nerve in my neck, I'm a jock. I like to play tennis.
Really?
No, yes.
Are you, so
Right
do you
now,
have, like,
right now, I don't feel like a jock. I feel like a cripple. But anyway,
what are you reading right now?
So I just finished. There's a brand new book by Ian McEwan called What We Can Know, and it just came out last week. And he's the guy who wrote. Did you ever see the movie Atonement with Keira Knightley?
No.
And
What year was that?
Quite a long time ago. It was, a sort of period piece, British. It was actually it's probably his most famous book, but it was a very, very, with James McAvoy and Keira Knightley, set in a British stately home. So anyway, the same is Ian McEwan, same author, and he's reimagined the world 100 years from now. And climate change has come in. Britain is an archipelago. I mean, America's being torn apart by warlords. So everything's been covered by the
very
sea.
uplifting.
And it's a sort of detective story. This academic is looking at these records of a poet and his wife who would be alive now and who were famous in their time. And it's a sort of detective story. He wants to know, he's puzzled. He thinks there's a missing poem. And I mean, I'm not doing it justice because in fact, what I'm about to say makes no sense at all. Because in fact, when you finish the book, you realize that it's really all about sex. So, which you would not get from what I told you. But anyway, but it's really, 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 it's really good. And, and I had to drive a bit this weekend. So I also, I read and then I listen to it as well.
Oh, you do? You do both?
Yeah.
That's smart. Because I always end up ordering the book because I'm old fashioned and I feel like you need to have the hard copy of the book, but I usually like the audio. But now you're making me sad because it's been so long since I've had that book experience where you can't wait to, like, pick up where you left off. I haven't had that in a long time because I think even when I'm reading, like, even all my old magazines, which I love, it's still with the intention of, like, gaining information to use for work.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, even my pleasure reading, I mean, I love my magazine so much, but even that is still contributing to work. So you might need to make us a book list. You might need to do, like, a fall. Although I will say I found a show that I love. Okay.
Which is?
It's called, what's it called? The Girlfriend? The Girlfriend.
Oh.
The Girlfriend.
I've seen it.
Oh my gosh.
It's fantastic.
It's so good.
So good. It's so good.
Don't tell me what happens. I'm on episode.
It's really, really, really good. Yeah, so that's the other thing I do. I'm a total Netflix. Yes.
It is so good.
It's really, really, really good. I'm
And I
100%
think it's
with you.
relatable for mothers of sons. Like,
I think it's extremely relatable.
I don't know right now at this point, you know, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but yes, you need to watch it. It's on Prime, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who's crazier, the mom or the girlfriend.
Well, that's why it's so clever, right? Because
So
the
you don't
whole
know.
way through, you get to see both points of view, and they're both kind of understandable, actually, which is why it's so clever.
But so that is one thing I'm doing for myself. I'm like, wait, because I usually have live news on, and then I'll do documentaries that I need on whatever I'm working on. But this, I just sat when everybody was on home arrest, and I think I made Hayes watch it with me. You're not going anywhere. Sit there. We're watching a psycho thriller.
I'm sure he was thrilled.
He's used to it, the poor kid. We're bad at
I'm
censorship.
sure he was thrilled. Yeah, the last time one of mine was home, he sat there. There was I can't watch horror movies. He's like, Mom, we're going to do a group thing. We're all going. I'm like, no, that is a bridge too far. I'm not sitting around. Not
I don't want horror ones either.
No, exactly.
So, do any of your boys cook? Who cooks in the house?
Yes, one of them. So one is like me and is useless. When I say, he's very in favor of ordering in. And the other one is really a terrific cook. And so it's fabulous when he's home because he kind of takes over the kitchen and he loves to do it. Yeah. And, but he's also very interested in food and nutrition, and he's very healthy, and he goes to the gym. And, it's funny because I'm, as their mother, I look at these two young men and you see the bits in them that are, or somehow a bit of you see the bits in them that are a bit of their father. And then there are these other bits, and you're like, did they come from Mom?
Yes, there's a lot of those bits.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought that in.
Yeah, exactly.
So will they come home for the holidays?
They will.
They're not identical, are they?
No. They're really, 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 really different in almost every way. I mean, one is a brunette and one is a dirty blonde, but yeah, and it'll be really great. And again, what's so great about our family? So I am divorced from their dad. We got divorced a long, long time ago, but we will all have. I mean, we do. We really are best friends, and so
has it always been that way? Like, did you guys always figure that
out? Definitely not. But at this point, and I don't even really know how it happened, but it is something that my children are really proud of, and so we do Thanksgiving all together. We'll do Christmas all together. We'll go on holiday all together. When my mum died, the boys and my ex-husband came with me to England. So no, it's don't
you think that makes all the difference? I mean, don't you think that when it's possible, it's really, really good?
Well, it means we never, we might not be married to each other, but we're family. We are family. And I mean,
you have to share them for either. You're going to be at the same birthdays, weddings, and graduations.
That's the thing. So what is it? I mean, and listen, I mean, years went by before, and my ex-husband lived on a different continent, so there was a lot of time for the air to go out of the balloon. And obviously, our kids are way older now. But I think that when a lot of people get divorced, the sadness is the feeling that they're breaking up the family, right, with children. And so in a really, wonderful way, what we have here is we have the family unit. But it is unusual because even when my kids are not around, and they're often not around now, I mean, one lives in Washington, one's in college, I will have dinner with my ex-husband.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, we're really good friends.
And so are you both supportive of each other? Like,
Yeah,
you can talk
no,
about work.
very much so. In fact, we had this idea to do a weekly podcast, sort of like Christiane Amanpour and James Rubin do, sort of like
That's
almost.
brilliant.
I know the problem, Jess, is that
Yeah.
he's in finance, and you know those kind of companies don't really like it. And when they've got somebody doing something like this,
Oh,
I
but
think he's probably rightfully cool.
such a
It would be great.
perfect dynamic with finance.
Yeah, no, it
Like,
was. I
I
think,
love this story, Vicky. I didn't know that you're.
yeah, yeah. No,
And what are people saying about theirs? Someone said it took them how many years? 30 years? I'm so itchy. 30 years. What? I'm looking at your guys' comments. What are they saying about divorce? It was funny. I was with a friend. Wait, you want to see? I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I was noticing that like my favorite people come from really sort of rough upbringings, like traumatic childhoods. And I was saying, it makes for better, funnier people. And Hayes overheard, and he's like, or I was saying, these most of the interesting people come from really crazy families, and he's like, I have a very good childhood, and I feel like I'm interesting, and I'm like, fine, there. He was like offended. He's like, I am also interesting.
Do they read? Do they read everyone?
No, they do like culture and stuff going on. They pay attention to all of, they like politics. They love Donald Trump. They think he's so entertaining. And they love the Maha stuff. They like all the challenges and stuff. I think I'm going to make them do. Did you guys see the presidential challenge? There's a whole list of, it just came out. It's like, what is it? It's like, see if you can pull it up. Yeah. It's like run a mile, do pull-up. It's pretty basic, but I don't know if I could do it.
It's a presidential channel. These don't sound like anything that Donald Trump will be doing.
That's why it's funny.
I see. I have a very trivial question for you. Is Robert Kennedy's voice at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, is that what he normally sounds like? Or was he sick?
Wait, is that the first time you heard it?
No, I've met him. I mean, but he sounded as if he had a terrible cold. But I'm like, well, something happened.
I did feel like he sounded worse at Charlie Kirk's memorial.
Okay, so it wasn't just me, because I'm like, oh.
And I felt like he was also a little off. Like, he's normally really, I felt like it was not his best speech. I don't know if you guys watched live, but sometimes his voice is better. It's weird. Like, I can notice when it's sometimes really a lot more solid or
right.
But I think I'm just used to it. I just don't feel like that was his best speech, but I had the best time there, and I'm so glad I went.
Oh my gosh, yes, I haven't caught you went.
I did go, and that was one of those things I didn't want to go because I was just in DC, and I wanted to be home. And so that was one of the things that I had to debate. And I'm like, I didn't want to go to, I knew it was going to be a huge crowd and a big ordeal getting in, which it was. But I'm so glad I was there because it was one of those things, when you're there on site, you have a very different perspective. Whatever anyone saw on TV or what anyone's going to recap based on what they saw, it was very sort of electric and very uplifting. And as soon as I walked in there, I just felt like I was, because I've been kind of weighed down by the negative hate stuff online, and it does get to you, even though it's not real. It's just noise, but it does really weigh on you. And so I have been in a tough place trying to figure out how to get rid of it. And when I walked into the stadium, it was just, it was really, really amazing. And I felt like it was a great testament to him and the people that follow him, you know. I'm not a super religious person. We don't go to church, and there was prayer song, and there was a lot of people praying, you know, throughout. I mean, I think it was like 6 hours long. It was a long thing,
I
but
have to say, I was doing stuff in my apartment, but I actually was glued to
really,
it. I was
oh, that's interesting.
because there was. I thought it was, you know, I thought it was a cultural moment that, you know, whatever side of the political aisle you're on, you need to be aware of. And you
Right.
need to, and I was, you know, the religious aspect of it really took me by surprise. And that's, you know, obviously knew who Charlie Kirk was, but I hadn't really understood that he was as much an evangelical um as a conservative. And so I thought, and there was, I mean, look, it was, I also think, um, that is, aside from obviously this was a tragedy, right? Um, but I think that the Republicans, when it comes to moments like this, even when it comes to their conventions, they know how to stage things. They're very, very good at it. And this was, I don't know why, but the Democrats certainly recently, there's been a disaster.
With this
And
type of
they're just
events and
not,
stuff.
I mean, look, this was, I mean, millions and millions and millions of people watched the Charlie Kirk thing. And so look, and Erica Kirk is obviously, an extraordinary person, but it won't have done any harm, that the televisation of it, to the MAGA movement. Whereas quite often, I think with like the Democrat conventions, when you watch, don't, they just don't, they're not slick. They don't think about the theater of things. They're not organized.
But do you think this is specifically one of Donald Trump's talents? I mean,
Yes.
to me, he's the greatest. I mean, he's a showman, right? That's what I always think. No matter what you think politically, I'm like, how can you not be interested in this sort of the theatrics of American politics right now? You know, there's characters. It's flashy. He does not look like anyone else we've ever seen ever. The women are glamorous, and there's
they all look, and they slightly look the same, as my father pointed out.
They do.
But it's true. But though that he pays great attention to the details of this, which people mock him for. I mean, like he goes to the UN and his takeaway is about the bad elevator and the the teleprompter not working, and people mock him for it. On the other hand, I think when you get it right, it's very powerful and not to be underestimated. So it's it is interesting. But when you go to something like that, Jess, I mean, presumably you didn't go alone. I mean,
I did go alone because I knew that I would, the Turning Point family. What I want to say about Charlie Kirk is he was very good to someone like me who does not fit in with a traditional conservative ideal. I mean, Christian ideal. I'm still fairly liberal in a lot of ways compared to their idea of conservatism. I am a working mom. I have said that I'm pro-choice. So I just feel like the Turning Point family was so good about welcoming someone like me into that community. And in the beginning, I didn't want to do political stumps, right? I didn't want to go and I wanted to track them as a spectator. I didn't want to be on stage as a surrogate. But with Charlie, when I learned who Charlie Kirk was and what Turning Point was, I said immediately, yes, I'll do whatever they need because I like the idea of engaging college students in debate. I like the idea of somebody teaching college students to argue their points. And so I did. I went to a lot of Turning Point events. And it was always so, they just embraced me in a really special way, and I'll never forget it. And then sure enough, it was like hell getting in there at that stadium. I almost turned away. It was horrible, the line. And I just kept telling
When did
people.
you arrive? I mean, because they closed the airspace, right? So presumably you had to get there.
I got there the night before.
Right.
And but I showed up late thinking I would just have a way in, and they almost shut everything out. It looked like a nightmare. I almost turned around. I'm so glad I didn't. But the crowd was so amazing. Nobody was fighting. There was no protesters, which was crazy. And when I told them I was there with Turning Point, they just ushered, this whole crowd just got me through. It took an hour, but I got through. And as soon as I walked in, I knew that I was supposed to be there. And I'm so glad I went. And, I know there's a lot of criticism about, it's, they had fireworks and it was too theatrical and it was, over the top. But I think that's exactly what Charlie would have wanted. It wasn't a funeral. It was a memorial celebrating his life and his impact. And I think, he had all of the administration there. He had the president there, and the president went off script and was talking about, there was a couple of times I was like, oh God, please. Oh no. All of us were like, no, 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 no. But, he came back. And I just think that is what Charlie would have wanted. I think it did honor him in a really, good way. Erica was amazing. And I've been to a lot of these events and you do get bored, when they're long and the speeches, but I was gripped the whole time. So, and, it was something my boys watched. They were texting me. I was texting them, I was watching the show, but I was texting my boys and they love Charlie Kirk. So it was the day that we found out, it was really hard because, my youngest son, he kept asking me, is Charlie, like, I'm going to cry. Hayes kept texting me, asking me if he was going to be okay. And I knew that he wasn't, but, that's someone they really idolize. So it was hard.
So did they know him?
Arlo had gone to Arlo, the oldest. He went to the Turning Point inauguration party. And that was I just remember everybody was on stage. There was Don Jr., Bettina, JD Vance, Charlie Kirk. And it was so magical this night. We were all there. Arlo was there. So the party was amazing. The lights, everything. It was such a high point, and I just remember looking at it, and I have the videos from that. And I was so glad Arlo was there and got to see, because we had gone through the whole campaign trail, and then you get to have these celebrations. But I mean, it's heartbreaking to think back. It just felt like
I remember that. I remember that was in the hotel I was staying in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when you say, Jess, you've had a lot of rough things said to you online. I mean, is that a recent thing? Is that because of the Maha stuff? Is there a particular topic that riles people up?
No, I think I've been dealing with it since I did the trials, right? Like as soon as I started with Ghislaine, I want to say, I've always been labeled, that was my first controversial stance is the coverage on Ghislaine. And so I've been dealing with it, but it was manageable then. And it really ramped up when I switched into politics. And I think, really when I got sort of swept in with the new media, it just was, it's a lot because there are no boundaries, there's no laws, there's nothing to stop people from harassing you, cyberly through anonymous accounts, and they will filter in they're messaging, my husband, my son, saying terrible things. And so it's hard to stay focused and do what we love and not be kind of distracted by it. And I think, I'm on a group chat with some women. Actually, Pam Bondi just talked about it on what's her name? Katie Miller podcast.
Yeah.
So it's like, Danica Patrick put it together, and it's like 10 women. And we don't even talk politics, really. It's just a support group of everyone who goes through the bashing online to kind of say, like, it's okay, like, we're here for you. Because most people don't know what it's like and how intense it can get. And I don't think not everyone could really deal with it. It would.
I think there's an assumption that if you stick your head above the parapet and so therefore you're in the public eye because you write, why do we do what we do? Because we want awareness. We want people to read what we write. And I think that there's a little bit of an assumption that, all right, so you stick your head above the parapet, you get the rough with the smooth. And also, I've had, I had to, I think I had one 2 days ago. I get, emails telling me, that, one time I had a man phone me up and tell me that he knew where I lived and he was standing outside with a gun and going to shoot me in the face. And, I'm so naive that I'd watched too many Agatha Christie movies on TV. And so I kept him on the phone. It was on my cell phone, thinking that maybe if I kept the phone going long enough, and that somehow somebody one day would be able to trace the call. And so I kept him talking, why do you want to shoot me in the face? And, what is it that I've said, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and let me read your address. And the problem is with, now everybody has access to our data. It's very hard. Anyway, then of course I go to the police and there's not really anything that anyone can do. And and there just are all these cranks.
And it's hard to know what to take serious, right? Like,
exactly
you get
right.
those, I get those, but then you see something like what we just saw happened, which is horrifying. And so it does make you stop and think, right before Charlie was killed, I was at a place where I'm like, is this really worth it? Because I've made my family such a public part of the content. And I don't really know how to do it any other way. I've never, I've always written from a very personal point of view. So it's hard for me to imagine doing it a different way and removing that aspect. But at the same time, it's just emotionally, it is a lot to deal with. And then something like that happens. But it had the opposite effect. I was in a bad place. And then when that happened, I thought, we need to keep going. If you believe in what you're doing, you need to keep going and not get knocked off course. So that's where I'm at right now. But then we have, then we have this incident the past weekend, and it really has just shifted my whole perspective again. But like I said, I think everything happens for a reason. So I think I'm in a place of reflection where it will hopefully pay off in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I loved how in your piece you talked about, you saw the silver lining was in the kindness of strangers, right?
I mean, I do always think that that's even going to these events. I mean, the whole campaign was not about really me amplifying these candidates. It was more about the people who are voting for them. Who are they? Who are these Americans? And that's the thing is, I started out very liberal, and I kind of had a different perspective of conservatives once I was spending, one-on-one time with them. So to me, it does matter that I'm there in person, whether it's a trial, some of these hearings I've gone to, the UFO hearings. I think it's different being there in person. And I know you know that. You went to Moscow for
Yeah.
the coverage, and it's different there.
I don't think you can really write meaningfully without human connection. I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're writing about politics, you're writing about business, you're writing about true crime, whatever it is you're writing about people. And the only way to really tell an honest story about people is to know them. and to know that you can't know them just on the phone or even on Zoom. There is this sort of ineffable that you have to be there. And that really cheers me up when I think about AI, because I think that actually that's the bit that AI
will never fill.
We just cannot do. So I think that's the upside of it. Can I ask you where you are in terms of, are you doing any Epstein, Maxwell stuff that you can talk about? You might not be able to talk about it.
No, I can. I mean, you know me, I love the Epstein stuff. I think it's an endless, it's an endless web. And I especially like that we're getting to hear from Ghislaine Maxwell for the first time. I thought her audio was very compelling. And so I'm going to write the chapters I've had. I've interviewed people who knew her in her suburban chapter of San Diego. It's really interesting.
She was with Ted Waite.
Yeah, so the Ted Waite years.
Well, you and I talked about this offline. There were things in the audio. I mean, I'm probably much more of a skeptic than you are. I mean, there was a lot of stuff I thought that was total garbage, but there was also stuff that had the kernel that to me had the ring of truth that I didn't know before. And one of the things, but now you've mentioned about San Diego, she said something about how Ted Waite, who was, Ted Waite was the gazillionaire, sort of nerdy guy who she hoped was her escape route, right, from
all of this,
from Jeffrey Epstein. And when she said that he got a phone call or someone reached out to his people trying to blackmail him, saying, I think she used, I think it was $10 million or something. Basically saying, we'll pay you, if you pay me $10 million, this will go away. I think she was talking about lawyers for the victims. I never heard that before, but in other words, she was sort of saying that's how her past caught up to the relationship and why it ultimately ended. And I believe that, to me, I mean, you can imagine if you're Ted Waite and you're dating Ghislaine Maxwell and someone phones you up and says, pay $10 million and I'll get these allegations to go away. I mean, you're blindsided. You can see why that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, they call it the billionaire shakedown, which I did know about that, but to hear it from her perspective, and it's not even that I believe everything she's saying. I think it's interesting to see some of her manipulative tactics at work. She's this very layered woman. She's complicated, damaged, very smart. And you can kind of see her playing the angle, right? And so there was many layers to it that I thought were fascinating. But I think, the billionaire shakedown was the beginning of the end. And then he met the woman he's married to now. And I think that devastated her. I do think she loved him. I think she thought that was her way out in a new beginning. They had that beautiful yacht that they were spending most of their time on. But I do think it's so funny that Trump just said that they're going to release the Amelia Earhart files, which nobody's asking for, right? Like,
I was going to say.
Have you ever seen the hashtag release the Amelia Earhart files? But I think it's funny because Ghislaine's obsessed with Amelia Earhart. You know, she's traveled.
Yeah, I know. It's totally.
Like, did she throw that in there?
That's, oh my God, I'd completely forgotten that.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, what is she working right now? What has she managed?
Right.
We don't have the Epstein files, but we're going to know where Amelia Earhart.
Well, there is, so right, there's this, so now there is one day when the new congresswoman is voted in, there is going to be a motion right on this on the floor. There's going to be a lot happening around this. You've also got Virginia Giuffre's memoir comes out this month.
And the Supreme Court is going to be ruling on Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal, like within, I heard, the first 2 weeks of October. So Epstein is not going away. And to me, I have so much, really just mostly about her, but I think it's also fascinating. So I would like to do that series, but, you know, I want to write about Palm Beach. I have all these funny, I don't name anyone, but there's, you know, these gossipy little series I want to do. And I just have all of it's piled up because every trip I go, there's more to write about. Even the parties, you know, even just going to the parties. But the Epstein stuff is not going away.
I love when you write about the parties.
Okay,
no one else is writing about the parties.
I think we need some more parties and some fashion. Should we take any questions? Are we going too long? Are we boring you guys? Does anyone have any questions?
I never know how to see this thing.
Can we see your questions? How do I make my... I think... Oh, there you go. Okay. I know you guys have some questions. We're here to gossip. Vicky just told us about her best friends with her ex-husband. Do we want to know if she's dating now?
Yes, do you have
another chapter for the debt files? I do. Actually, it's a really good one because it involves Elon Musk and how crazy he was back then and maybe still. I do have one last finale for the debt files, but I got so distracted by, was it Epstein? Yes, I was dealing with a lot of attacks during debt. And remember, my account went down for 2 weeks.
I remember that.
It was not fun. I don't know. I don't see any good questions, you guys.
Well, we've gone for an hour. So we might have bored everyone stupid. But I am very excited, Jess.
We'll have to have it separate about all of this stuff that we share.
Yes. Well, and hopefully I'm going to see you next week in New York.
Yes, I'm going to take the train. I'm going to go to DC and then I'll take the train over and maybe we can meet up for dinner.
Love that.
And don't you guys think Vicky should submit her book list? Her book recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Deal?
Deal.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Vicky.
Thank you.
Bye. Are you going to turn?
Bye.
How do I...